International Union of Socialist Youth Vice President Khulekani Skosana joins us now to talk about this summit. Mr. Sole, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Perhaps just if we could start with your organization, what it does, and I'd really like to hear from you, your comments on what the president said yesterday, that his generation, they want political freedom, and it's now the responsibility of this youth cohort to win economic freedom.
Thank you. It's Skosana, not Stole. My organization,
apologies,
the International...
Mr. Skosana, I don't even know why I said Stola. Apologies, it's my fault.
It's okay.
Yes.
My organization, or the organization I'm part of, the International Union of Socialist Youth, has official status in the United Nations, the African Union, the European Union, the oldest and biggest youth movement in the world, and for which I serve as Vice President, representing my country, South Africa, and also representing the continent of Africa. We would like to firstly begin by thanking His Excellency President Ramaphosa for affording us this opportunity together with the National Youth Development Agency. Oftentimes when young Africans must meet, they are convened by Europeans, Chinese, Americans. So it's so refreshing that for once in a while we can sit together in a room organized by Africans and for Africans. I have been so happy to have been participating in this dialogue named after a gallant and an activist of young people who loved children so much, a champion of youth struggles. So what the President of South Africa said to us is really touching, especially because he spent about 3 hours interacting with young people. What we want to say as a takeaway out of this activity is that we recognize that for South Africa to prosper, Africa must prosper. South Africa cannot be a successful developing nation in a sea of poverty. The same way the successes of African liberation started in Ghana and spread across the continent, so will the end of unemployment, so will the end of poverty, and so will the end of inequality.
And young how are youth Africa, allow me to just jump in and ask Mr. Skosana, how you as youth delegates are engaging with these issues. Take South Africa's National Development Plan, for instance. It does have with it socialist tones, and we know that you mentioned Western countries and how often the North are the ones who are the custodians of these forums, and they're sometimes very openly anti-socialist in the kind of economic vision that they have. So I'm just wondering what the young people on the African continent are saying are the solutions for dealing with high levels of unemployment, inequality, food insecurity, lack of gender representativity as well. So speak to me about some of these discussions that you're having.
We might not share a lot, but what we do share is the spirit of Pan-Africanism, the dream for African Renaissance, which was started by our forefathers in the Organization of African Unity. And what we recognize in the 21st century is that Africa has the biggest population of young people around the world. About 70% of sub-Saharan Africa is young people under the age of 30. This presents an opportunity for African leaders and for African countries to say that for our continent to prosper, young people must be given the platform. And the platform is on the table of decision making. We're saying that if you are going to have Agenda 2063 that is written by old people without young people, for us without us, and Agenda 2063 is written by elders who will be in heaven in 2063. Include young people in spaces of decision making. We're saying that boost sustainable job creation by assisting entrepreneurship and by involving the innovation of young people in climate change ideas and adaptation. So we are happy that finally there is that interest, and we are asking our leaders throughout the African continent to fully implement the blueprint created by young people, which is the African Youth Charter. Young people have already spoken through this document as to what we want to happen. Our biggest challenge is unemployment, and we are saying that we have been taken to school. Right now in South Africa, you have 360 unemployed graduates. We think that if we are going to be told the story that education is the key to all success, then we want to see all those 360,000 young people in South Africa being employed. We're saying that make it easy for us to travel and study across the continent so we can do business with each other. We are tired of a situation where our mineral resources are being exported to European countries so that they can be sold back to us as finished good. We sell metals to Germany. Germany sells us Vorpas. So we want to allow African innovation by young people to foster so that we can finally create finished goods. And instead of always begging the IMF, instead of begging the World Bank, we want to assist our continent in building its wealth.
Yeah,
Africa's cause must triumph, and this conversation is a good start.
Let's talk about this issue that you're raising and was raised earlier on, that of economic exclusion. Part of what you're saying about the collaboration of young people on the continent does infer a certain amount of cultural exchange, sharing of ideas, learning from each other, given the kind of challenges which have been, I think some people would say, mislabeled as xenophobic in this country. What would you suggest? How do you tighten the bonds between young people across the continent, especially using the African Continental Free Trade Area, to overcome these challenges of economic exclusion? And particularly if we look at the leadership age on the continent, because some have pointed at that as part of the reason why there's economic exclusion of young people. Leaders who are too old to understand the needs of young people.
We think that the Africa Free Trade Agreement is a wonderful opportunity for our governments to display that they have a love and caring for young people by ensuring that there is a deliberate intention of proportionating procurement and opportunities and deliberately pushing young people to do business amongst each other. But importantly, if as a young person, I'm going to prioritize buying Gucci over buying Batu, over Drip, it's important that we develop a culture of loving our own products, our own food, our own clothes, and speaking our own languages. If we do not love our continent and if we're not patriotic, then we can have a lot of agreements that will not work. Something that you all also know is that we have very good laws, we have very good policies, but the lack of implementation hinders progress in our continent. I think that if we're going to have an initiation such as the Africa Free Trade Area or agreement, then its implementation must put young people at the front. Nothing for us without us. If it is for young people, then it must be young people who are at the front of the results of the good intentions of the AfCFTA. So we are saying that make it easy for us to do business. If I want to sell products to another African country, why must I fill up many forms? Why must I go through so much red tape? And we're saying that corruption in our continent is also a hindrance for the prosperity of our continent. I mean, to make an example, Kylian Mbappe, a very brilliant soccer player, he wanted to play for his home country, Cameroon. But when he was auditioning or trialing to play, his father was asked to pay money so he can qualify to play for the soccer team. And that's why today he's a France superstar. A lot of our talent, a lot of qualified young people are leaving the continent because they are not being given the opportunities that they can use to assist in transforming the continent.
A very apt and powerful note to leave it on. I really appreciate your time. Khulekani, Skosana, International Union of Socialist Youth Vice President. Hope you do join us after the conference and share more of those ideas coming out of that. Thank you so much for your time.